Hello and welcome to another Imperator Rome Developer Diary, and as you can see on your screen, it is all going to be about the upcoming rework of Republic government mechanics, which is something that was kind of needed. It's something that's been complained about since the release of Imperator Rome, is that all of the Republic government types in the game sort of played the same, with the same factions, and it was a little bit iffy. Republics are not my favourite thing to play with. I prefer monarchies. But yeah, it's definitely good that there is going to be some update to them. So how about we just get into the dev diary and we'll see what's up with Republics now. And there we go. So, hello all. Today, Arheo and I will be covering the upcoming rework of Republic government mechanics. First up is Arheo. To begin with, I'd like to explain a little bit about the process that led to the changes you'll hear about. Republican Senate mechanics began their life as a catch-all government type that was intended to represent all democratic nations on the map. During development, we realized we wanted to be able to have the Senate able to act as a core consideration in a Republic player's game loop by adding the ability for our content designers to add weights to individual actions so that each faction could simulate an opinion depending on what you wanted to do. It succeeded in part. The Senate could be manipulated if you knew where to look, yet it was often very unclear why the Senate voted any given way without scrolling through a yard of tooltips and numbers. Perhaps even more importantly, it became such a huge task to consider every time we wanted to add a new character or diplomatic actions that it ultimately had to go. So I went back to the drawing board, and he had several primary goals in mind for the faction rework. So here we go. It should be more accurately represent the political makeup of the Roman Senate. Well, for Rome specifically, yes. Not for all the rest of them. That the Senate still had the ability to get in your way and be an important, distinctive part of Republican gameplay. While I hate when the Republic gets in my way, that's kind of the whole point of the Republic. So, yeah. I hate it, but it's good that it's in, if that makes sense. That we bring characters and votes more closely together. Yes, perfect. Making characters be like the linchpin of pretty much everything in the game is probably a good idea. Having it be a character-focused game that you're still, you're playing the spirit of a nation, but the characters should be like the main thing that your spirit is interacting with, for sure. And then finally, that the factions are much more dynamic and can in future be expanded upon to add all manner of new content to nations. Perfect. The Roman Senate had I wouldn't say it had very little in common with the Athenian Senate, let's say. But they were very different at the same time. So having them be able to play differently and look differently and all that kind of stuff is going to be a very big thing. It's much, much better than the militarist, religious, mercantile and populist factions. Like, there needs to be some distinction there. Those factions just didn't really work for me or anyone else, as far as I know. So yeah, it's good that they're changing it. So, on to Trinch Regular here, who will explain quite how we went about fulfilling these aims. So, the Republican Senate. In a republic, the citizens of a state exercise power through an assembly, and most well-known such assembly in our game is probably the Roman Senate. The historical Senate did not have parties as such, but any given time there would often be factions gathering senators around them. While all senators had the right to vote, it was not always the case that everyone made the choice of how to exercise that vote for themselves. Just as often, a senator would vote to satisfy obligations that he might have to one of the more politically active members of the Senate, or along friendship lines. Likewise, any assembly made out of people will feature some that are more impressionable than others. In the Roman Senate, those who voted without speaking were often referred to as pedarii. Since voting was often conducted by senators moving from one side of the assembly to the other to show their support or disagreement with the current speaker, and any politically ambitious senator would have to have earned the trust of a number of such pedarii. The Senate politics was often as much about how many others you could mobilize around you as it was about high ideas and ideologies. Which is not to say that ideals were unimportant in politics. No Senate relies only on favours to function. But the system that has been in the game up until now has been relying on parties always voting exactly along the lines of an imagined ideology on every issue, when in reality this influence is less direct and influential politicians could most of the time get support for their ideas based on a combination of trust and individual merit. That sounds delightful. Recognizing that the old system was flawed, where it was flawed, why it was flawed, and then, having an idea of how to, make it better, make it more historically authentic. I'm not going to say historically accurate, because, we're never going to get that in any game ever. But historically authentic is something I definitely think is achievable, and, it looks like they've got the right ideas, from what I know of the Republican Senate, after all. So, this is what the Senate is now going to look like. So, we've got in Rome the Optimates, the Populares, and the Boni, which is actually not one that I am all that familiar with. Whenever I hear about Roman Senate politics, it's usually just, two opposing factions. But Boni, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm totally wrong and this is totally a thing. I don't know. But this is the start of the game. Obviously, we don't have this fella, which I've forgotten the name of, Sextus, I think. He's not in charge yet. But we've got a consul, co-consul. They're both members of the Optimates, which is like the nobility faction, the guys that really like the traditionalist. They don't want reforms. They're the conservative party, I guess one could say. And it looks like they also have kind of like mandates or agendas or something. They want to declare war. The Populares want to change a law. That's very Populares. I'll give them that. And the Boni want investment. What the balls does that mean? I have no idea. We've got... Okay, so because the Optimates are in power, their mandate, I guess, will be up here. Maybe if you don't follow through with what your party wants, there's going to be a big opinion penalty or something. That could be interesting. Yeah, I like it. So we've got 35 seats for the Optimates, 40 seats for the Populares, and 25 seats for the Boni. Does that mean... I assume that means that the Populares are going to get the next Senate, although it doesn't look like it. It looks like the next consul is going to be from the Optimates, co-consul from the Populares, but I guess that doesn't really matter so much. It's more about the candidate itself, the character, his stats. But it'll be these guys in power, or these guys have the most voting weight based on what you do. It'd be interesting to see how they interact on that one. So let's move on. In the Menander update, we have revamped the party system altogether. Gone is the large number of generic parties that corresponded to vague ideas, and instead we've gone with parties that correspond to political groupings of the era. Great, fantastic. This also means we now have 3 parties at any given time for you to balance, with their membership and influence more in flux. Rather than trying to map the parties to issues you care about, we've also tried to make the issues the party care about matter to you. More on that below. Okie dokie. The Roman parties are based on the political groupings that existed in the latter part of the life of the Republic, though they do not mimic them exactly. So we've got the Optimates. This party represents primarily aristocrats of ancient pedigree. They oppose the rise of new men and the influence of common people on the Senate. The Optimates believe that the Populares are a destructive force that will wreck the ancient privileges and traditions of the Republic. Here they go, the Boni. These are not familiar to me. So the Boni try to strike a balance between looking to the needs and wants of the poor masses, while still preserving stability and acting through gradual reform. They believe that the way forward is through the Senate, and while using the existing rules rather than radical reform and empowering popular movements. The Boni believe they are looking out for the best of the country as a whole instead of supporting any particular group in society. Their opponents believe they will favour the status quo at any cost. In Roman historiography, the Boni and Optimates are often used as synonyms. That's probably why I've never heard of them. Here we use them to separate those that seek to protect and preserve the ideals of the old republic, such as Cicero, from those that more purely seek power on behalf of those already privileged. So they're calling Cicero a Boni. Alright. Usually I hear about Cicero as just he was opposed to Caesar, and Caesar was absolutely a populare. So maybe that's this is where I'm mistaken on that one, perhaps. I don't know. If any of you know more about the Boni, please do point me in the right direction, because I would love to learn more. So, populares. The men of the people claim to act in the interest of the common people, such as indebted farmers, poor aristocrats, and veterans that could not adapt to life after war. Alright, so just quickly, I'm going to put in a little bit of opinionated stuff here. I don't think that adding claim here does anything. I really don't. The most famous popularis was, of course, Caesar. And while, sure, he may have been passing law reforms for indebted farmers, poor aristocrats, and veterans in order to gather support for other things that he wanted to do, the fact remains that he passed reforms that benefited the poorest people of society in Rome by a massive degree. So I don't think adding claim here is right, because he did act in the interest of common people. Him acting in the interest of the common people was in his own interest, sure, and that may have been why he did it, but he still absolutely 100% acted in the interest of the common people. So, I don't know, I just think adding claim there is a bit of a... It's a jab that is kind of unnecessary. I don't know. Anyway, the populares oppose the Optimides in almost every way. They're happy to overthrow old traditions and the privileges of the few, to empower and enrich the many and those who can sway them. See, I don't know. Right, from these, I guess we're the way that we're taught about Roman history, or at least the way I was, it was the Optimites versus the populares. And the Optimites were always spoken about as the good guys. Pompey was the good guy, and Caesar was, the one who caused the civil war, and the one who was blah, blah, blah. But, alright, just going from these definitions, populares are the good guys. They are aiming to empower and enrich the many. That, in my opinion, is a good thing. And I guess maybe that is partly because I am quite left-wing. Personally, politically, right? Maybe that's why. But he sounds pretty fucking good to me. Although I guess in game it's looking like the Boni are going to be the ones that I'm going to want to have in power. Because I'm sure they're going to do the same thing that they did with the populists in the original version, where the populists are going to be a pure negative with very, very, very minor and few benefits. Right? I didn't like that either. So I'm feeling that's what's gonna happen with the populares. I hope not. I really, really hope it's not gonna be a case of, oh, the populares in charge, fuck you, player. Because, no. Having populists in charge should maybe increase the happiness of your pops, perhaps? Because, they're popular. Clues in the fucking name. Anyway, but yeah, I have a feeling that the Boni are going to be like the balance between the Optimides and populares. I mean, that's how it reads, of course. So maybe if you've got the Boni in charge, you're going to be able to sway more Optimides and populares to your side. Whereas if you're the populares, the Optimides are always going to oppose you, and if you're an Optimate, the populares are always going to oppose you. Boni seem like the balanced one. Anyway, let's move on again to the next part. Votes and party membership. In the Menander update, the votes that the parties of the Senate wield are no longer dependent on discrete modifiers. Instead, they come from the characters that are a part of its membership. Every character in a country will now have a Senate influence rating, and when added together for all characters in a party, this determines how many votes a party has. Okay. So every single character in a country will have its own influence on the Senate. And then when they're all added together, that's how many votes they have. Okay, I like that's cool. That's alright. That's an interesting system. It's interesting that it's not just like the top 100 have the power, but I guess you're probably not going to find every single republic having 100 characters, so maybe not. So having a look here, the populares, they control 41% of the Senate, as they have 41 seats. A little bit redundant, because I don't think you can increase the size of the Senate, or at least you can't in the version we have right now. As the higher the Senate influence a character has compared to other characters in the country, the more seats their party will have. So, the most influential faction members, we've got Quintus Fabius Rullianus, that's this guy, I remember him now. We've got Marcus Fabius Corvus, Publius Claudius Mus. These guys have got very little influence, it's mostly coming from Quintus. So I guess... Oh, I wonder, right? Because a big part of Roman politics was, like, if you were away from Rome, you had a lot less influence. So maybe if you made Quintus here a governor, some far-flung place, would his influence go down? That would be an incredibly interesting system, I think. I would love that. I wonder if they've done that. That'd be cool. All right, well, move on. We might see it. I don't know. How much Senate influence each character has can vary greatly, with some being good for many more votes than others. This means that it'll now be possible to handle a particularly troublesome party by trying to get rid of their influential members. Such a character abandon one party for another, it will also now have a much more deeply felt effect. Right, so how are you going to be able to get a character to switch parties? I know right now there's like party influence on characters. So if you give them a certain job, like if you give them command of an army or a navy, they're more likely to go with the militarist faction. I wonder if that's going to be sort of the same thing. But I mean, what jobs and stuff would translate into each party? I don't quite know. Having a very charismatic leader of the factions as well would definitely change them over to their side. So yeah, interesting. Okay. The Senate influence of a character is based on their power base. That's fair. Be nice if we could have some more things to do with prominence as well. If we could add prominence into that, just to give prominence another use, that is a little bit more, transparent, that would be nice. But I guess power base, I feel like power base maybe needs a little bit of tweaking, but yeah, I mean, this is power base affecting something else. It's not something affecting power base, so I guess it's fine. It's also modified by a number of factors, such as traits. An orator will have increased influence, as will characters with high popularity or jobs. Yeah, makes sense. A character being made governor or general will see their influence sharply reduced, despite their now increased power base, as it's hard, if not impossible, to exert influence over the Senate when you're not in the capital. Oh, you beauties! That's perfect. Yes, 100% yes. That's fantastic. Oh, I'm loving that. That's great. That's perfect. Yes. So yeah, if you have this guy here, if you are playing Rome and you start the game and the Optimates are in power, and you know what, you want to keep with the Optimates because they're the ones that want you to declare war, and you don't really want to change a law. So you give this Quintus fella a job leading an army. It's fucking anywhere, it doesn't matter. And he will go and he'll lead the army and he'll go fight and stuff. And his influence rating sharply drops, and this 58.68, which is freaking huge, drops significantly. So the Optimates gain more seats. Fantastic. While this guy is in the Senate, he's swaying people to his side. No longer, because he's fucked off into southern Italy, waging war against the Samnites. Love it. Fantastic. That's perfect. Oh, I love that. Fantastic. Yes. Alright, so what do we got here as well? There we go. Conviction for different parties. So, Populara's conviction, monthly changes plus 0.14. Being a major character is a negative. Having lots of popularity is a positive. Charisma is positive. And martial is a positive as well. So you can kind of see why Caesar would have been a Popularis, because he was incredibly popular, he was incredibly charismatic, and he was a fucking good general as well. So, yeah, makes sense. Definitely makes sense. Alright, moving on. Likewise, the factors that contribute to a character changing their party membership have been revisited, with personality traits and social standing now playing a much bigger role in where their loyalties lie. Some further examples to illustrate this are that some characters are less independent-minded and will tend towards supporting the party of their head of family, while others would shun the party of their head of family for exactly that reason. Oh, so is that going to be a trait or a new... Oh, what's that? I recognize that. That's Senate power, I believe. I don't see anything that isn't like they're saying here. What I'm trying to put into words is this part here. Some characters less independently minded will tend towards supporting the head of their family, while others would shun the party of their head of family for exactly that reason. I was wondering, is that going to be a loyalty to head of family number? Or is that going to be purely a trait? So you're going to have a trait for being submissive or arrogant, assertive, that kind of thing. I don't see anything here that would be sort of on side for that. I mean, maybe it's this 21, actually. I'm not entirely sure what this 21 is supposed to be. Because his loyalty's up here, his popularity, his prominence, corruption, it's all up there. What is this 21? That could be, loyalty to head of family. Who knows? That could be interesting. Alright, moving on. Party approval and abuse of power. Okay, so we got here trying to offer an alliance to Apulia. The Senate disapproves of this. You only have 49.9% out of the 50% required to support the Senate for this action. So you can't declare war. Oh, sorry, you can't offer an alliance unless you're at 50%. You can't declare war because it's the 2nd of October, 450, so you can't declare war for, a month after the game starts. So that's why that one's grayed out. But yeah, no, it's sort of like what's in the game right now. If the Senate doesn't want you to do something, they ain't gonna let you do it. Just as before, the parties of the Senate will be able to vote on many of the actions you take, and will be able to obstruct the rule of a weak consul. As seen above, their power to support or obstruct your actions hinges on the influence of their members. Their willingness to support you, however, is no longer dependent on the action being taken. Instead, every party will now have an approval value, reflecting the favor you have gathered with this party through your actions as a ruler. If you're upholding the ideals of the Republic, while popularity... sorry, I missed a bit. If you give land to head of families, the optimates will approve, but if you hold triumphs from minor characters, they will lose approval. Members of the Boni will applaud upholding the ideals of the Republic, while populares and optimates will both favor curtailing them in various ways. Interesting. So the Boni want to uphold the ideals of the Republic, populares and optimates curtail the ideals of the Republic. I suppose we want to kill the ideals of the Republic for the betterment of the people. We want to kill the ideals of the Republic for the betterment of my friends. Yeah. Fuck these guys. Anyway. Ideals and political unrest thus remain very important to the functioning of the Senate, but you can also reliably muster support for your actions by ensuring that all parties get to do at least some of what it is they want. Alright. So we've got some laws screen here. Enact lex aela et fufia. So you get, conversion speed, blah, blah, blah. Rome loses 5 approval from the optimates and 10 from the Boni, but 10 approval comes from the populares. That's fine. And then they'll be more or less likely to support your actions in declaring wars or what have you. Yeah, it makes sense. Okay. Approval is useful since it determines how parties will vote. As long as you have sufficient approval from the parties in your Senate, you can do almost anything. The current support you have in the Senate is something you can always see in the top bar. Should you abuse this power, however, it may come back to harm you. The parties have opinions on everything you do, and if you use their votes to do things they do not approve of, they're unlikely to support you in the future. This is especially true if you stop them from pushing through their party agendas. Okay, so that's what those are. Alright, so you could use their approval to pass laws that they don't want, and that would really hurt your support with them. Fair enough. Alright, so party agendas and the consular veto. So we've got here hovering over the declare war. Ruling faction political objective is declare war. Their objective is to be at war with Etruria. On completion, the party agenda has been achieved. Rome gets some approval from the Optimates. And I guess you can use that approval to do something that the Optimates don't want, and it's sort of a balancing act. I like it, that's fine. Optimates are looking to start a war with our neighbour Etruria, where they supposedly have some interests. Yeah, interest in the murder of Etruria. I wonder, would the Populares and Boni be against murdering Etruria? I don't really see any reason that they would hate it. Anyway, moving on. At any given time, every party in your Senate will have an agenda that they wish to see fulfilled. These are always visible in the government screen and can range from quite reasonable things like improving the infrastructure in some province to far less easily accommodating things such as changing the laws or confiscating land from the heads of family. Oh, now that's gonna be rough. That is gonna be rough. It's gonna be a Populares agenda, I assume. Populares agenda: remove some land from the head of a ruling family. If that ruling family has enough, not political power, power base, that could cause a civil war. So fulfilling the objectives of your ruling party may end up in a really bad situation. That's going to be an interesting challenge to overcome. Alright, sometimes the parties will even propagate for the declaration of war on other countries. Well, yeah, like here. You cannot, however, rely on the parties staying silent about their agendas. If one of their members holds the consulship, they will expect to be able to fulfill their agenda. As long as there is sufficient approval, you can be sure that the party in power will try to push its agenda through the Senate. When this happens, you will be presented with a choice of either allowing it or using the consular veto, which will stop the agenda from being pushed through during this term. Opposing the ruling faction can be costly, however. Using the veto against the ruling faction will see their approval plummet in a way that may be hard to recover in a timely manner. So we've got here the Optimates agenda is a war on Apulia. And if you... Oh wow, that's quite a lot. If you say no, you lose 50 approval from the Optimates. Let's go back up. That's all of their approval. They start with 50. That's rough. That is super rough. You're gonna have trouble like passing anything after that. Although, I mean, if these two all say yes to something and these guys say no, then maybe it wouldn't be so bad. But yeah, that's a huge hit. Under Gaius Claudius Crassus, the Optimates have been pushing for a war against our neighbour Apulia. Despite loud protests from the other parties, Gaius has a majority in the Senate. Okay. Does he have a majority in the Senate, though? Unless you want to ruin our relationship with the Optimates, we must give in to the clamour for conflict. Well, he is the head of the party. You're just a member of the party that happens to be consul. Fair enough. More republics and more parties. This diary is focused on the Roman parties, but we're revamping the system for all republics in the game. Yes, good. That sort of thing makes me think that not every republic is going to have an Optimates, Populares, and Boni. Menander will also feature 3 new parties for other republics, which are more inspired by the world of Greek politics, but also more general since they need to work in many parts of the world. These parties are the oligarchs. The party represents the richest members of your society, as well as the ancient noble families. They seek to increase their wealth and power and are less afraid of making use of the masses to reach their goals than the Roman Optimates are. Okay, so oligarchs are sort of a mix between the Optimates and the Populares. Although making use of the masses is a little bit different from for the masses, so maybe not. The Democrats seek to preserve the freedoms of the citizens in their society. They're less focused on personal honor than the Roman Populares, but just as intent on acting against the interests of the oligarchs. All right. And then finally we have the Traditionalists. The Traditionalists are focused on avoiding disturbing the gods and preserving the privileges of the priesthood. They're no pacifists, but they will oppose the sacking of holy sites of your religion and will in general take a conservative position on many things. Where the Boni yearn for the old Roman virtues and the founding principles of the Republic, the Traditionalists are far less concerned with such political ideals. Since we want to take the time to make them special, we have now focused on making the Roman parties perform as we want and adding reasonable general setup for other, largely but not only Greek republics. It's important to us that even these generic parties should model real-life social struggles in interest groups, since that was our opinion one of the major failings of the old system. In the future, however, we want to add more country or culture-specific parties to republics around the world, something this new system should lend itself well to support. As usual, anything you see here is subject to change to some degree, even if the underlying mechanics described are accurate for the current state of development. Whether you're playing with the Roman parties or more general ones, we think these changes significantly change how republics play, and we hope you will enjoy it. One thing I do see is a glaring omission here is any mention of Carthage. I think if you're going to be doing a republic overhaul, you really need, obviously, Rome 100% needs to be the main focus. Their name's on the fucking game, it's on the box, so you need to focus on Rome. But if you're doing a republic overhaul, then also I think you need to do something with Carthage. Carthage needs its own unique government names, at least, or unique government stuff as well. What those would be called, I don't know. I don't have a huge amount of knowledge on the intricacies of the Carthaginian Senate. I don't know. But they kind of need something as well. And then, of course, having the Greeks be something different again, and then something more general. It's good. It's fine. It works. But yeah, I do think that Carthage does need a little bit of love in this regard as well. I don't know. I mean, maybe I do know that oligarchs were a thing in Carthage. That's a term that I've heard used when referred to their senate. So maybe this perfectly works for the Carthaginians. I don't know. Oligarchs would be sort of like a mercantile faction as well, perhaps. I don't know. At least give us some, even if they are the same generic, I mean, I wouldn't say generic, but even if they are these ones that a lot of other countries are sharing, they could have localized names. So instead of oligarchs, call it something else, more Carthaginian, even if they play in exactly the same way. Same with Democrats and traditionalists. Just name them something else would go a long, long way into kind of diversifying the pool, as it were. But yeah, no. Overall, this is a really, really fucking good dev diary, and I am wholly approving of it. I don't like playing Republics right now. I'm going to be playing a Republic first time with Menander. That's a given, because this looks great. So, I'd love to know what you guys think, and also some of your suggestions for maybe Carthaginian or Greek faction names. That would be quite interesting to know. So pop all of that in the comment section below. If you liked the video, hit the like button. If you want to keep up to date with all Imperator news, updates, dev diaries, all that kind of thing, then subscribe if you're not already. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.